Hello there, this is Big Benedict. We're playing Resident Evil 4, and this is the Separate Ways campaign with Ada Wong, and we're on Chapter 3. I realize that having two title cards here is a little bit redundant. However, you could see from the title card that this is entitled Retrieve the Sample. It's Chapter 3 of 5, and I now have the bowgun. You can purchase the bowgun. I'm not sure what the cost was, but you may need a larger attaché case to hold everything at this point. All your weapons. What I was experiencing over here, the reason I'm not equipping the bowgun, first of all, is because you don't reload the gun. However, on the first shot you ever take with it, it requires a reload, and it's putting yourself at too much risk when these two Illuminados are coming down the stairs at you. So I just ran into that weird little problem, and it was causing me some issues. So I just decided to use the bowgun a little bit later in the fight with this particular room. Now, you notice that we're in the maze gardens here once again. There are no dogs, fortunately, but there are these enemies here, which I think are one of the harder enemies in the game. So, this guy will be in the corner over here, and I'll be showing you where I hope every box and every pickup is over here. My only issue was simply that I couldn't start fitting everything, and one of the other really annoying factors is that a lot of the enemies here will start having those plagas coming out of them, whether it's this one. When you see this one here, when it first comes out of the head, even if it's attached, start immediately shooting it to stagger it, because it throws spit at you and it damages you. On a run like this, it's just over. So the next thing you want to do, I would equip the whatever it's called, what the fuck is that thing called? It doesn't matter. Just wait for 2 shots to get fired by him and then come up here. But watch out for the guy beneath to the right in the red robe, because what he does is he throws his scythe at you if you stick your neck out too far for him to throw it at and then cut it off. So, it's called I don't know. It's so difficult to do commentary sometimes. You know, when you're trying to grope for a word and so many things are happening on the screen and you're missing it. Okay, so the next cluster of enemies will spawn if you go about right there, or if you've killed, I think, one more beyond the kill count that we've done. So that was just completely fortunate right there and completely lucky. What happened, I believe, was that I shot this weapon and I hit the bow out of the air, which canceled out me getting hit. So I shot wild right there because I was nervous, not knowing if there was an enemy behind me. And do you see scuttling on the other side of the hedges, that La Plaga, whatever they're called? I wish I knew the bestiary. I just wish I knew. I'm focusing on the mechanics first before I start learning the finer details of this game. If I make another guide after this, I'll definitely know the names. But what happens is, this Los Plagas beyond the hedges that I'm trying to shoot right now was the one that detached from the head of the monk in the red robe that I said could throw the scythe at you and cut your neck off. That one. But as you can see, well, you can't see now, but in a moment you will see when I go over to that region, it disappears. So they do disappear. But I always find it a little bit unnerving when I can't account for all the enemies, and things are running amok and not being accounted for. So this is where I'm at over here now, and I'm being very careful just because of that thing running around. But my better judgment knows that there's nothing over here, because I've done this many times and the thing never came after me. Although there is one sequence a little bit in about 5 minutes or so, 4 or 5 minutes, where the thing does come after me. So I just don't take any chances is the moral of that story. Okay, so coming up here now, you could snipe a lot of the guys from atop the like the middle part where you stand and do the fountain stuff. Now, when you come over here, sometimes I suspect that they don't give you a sensitivity option just because of the way I think they want to control your view, like what you can see on the screen. But I honestly don't know if they fixed it in the Wii. That also may tell me that it was something that they just didn't do. So what we're looking for now is a way to get over to the red cloaked monk. Now, this over here is an optional area, and I think it's the gold bangle with pearls. Okay, so we've got a couple of monks guarding these treasures, and what you can do, just like last time, is you can sprint to the door early on over here. There's nothing to collect like before with the dogs in this venue. I'm not sure how many of you played this game, but when you were in here before, you had to collect 2 fragments, like 2 pieces of a moon to make a solid or a whole moon. Now anyway, what happened over here was this guy found the AI directed this guy right over to me. And I think it was just the proximity of myself to him, because look at this over here. I barely escaped. But a lot of the times when I feel that I have to recover in this game or switch quickly, I almost got hit there. It's ridiculous. But the thing is, they more than likely give you enough time to recover. It just feels really natural. So with him dead, there's probably just 1 or 2 guys left, maybe just 1. But that Los Plaga, he came from over here because he detached from that guy's head and ran up the stairs towards me. And I'm going to have to come back for all of this stuff. You can come back after you get to the save point. The main issue about the beginning of this chapter 2, and trying to get all your stuff sorted and switch your attaché cases, move inventory around, buy the bow gun, is that there is no typewriter, so that you can do none of that and then save it. You have to do it every time you start the chapter. So that's one of the reasons why fatigue is easy. It's easy to set in on the player over here for sure. But I knew that, I wanted to do this a particular way as far as my guide, and it's not that bad actually. I mean, a lot of these guys you can just snipe them from up there, but they don't seem like a headshot is just not enough for these guys, because they're going to have that parasite coming out, and it has to be dealt with or unspawned in some way. But I think that is the last guy now. If memory serves, the music stopped over here. But do you remember earlier when I was showing you that Las Plaga through the hedges? At that point, you can actually make a break for it. So everything over here, it's all optional. And you can go back here and do everything at your leisure. Do the fights on that checkpoint if you want to. Because the door up here is open, and it was never closed. So we're going to head on in here and save our progress and do a little bit of looting. Okay, so what we're going to do now is save at the typewriter, and I'm going to show you the locations of some of the treasures over here. There aren't too many to get, but the ones that exist are quite valuable, especially the perfume bottle in the center of this bed over here. So we do have quite a long ways to go, and of note over here is just the fact that the looping around that you have to do is questionably mandatory, and I only say that because there are a lot of instances where you can just run past enemies. I mean, they do attempt to grab you, but it's not hard to evade their grab by sprinting. So if you want to, you can go this way. You can also go to where the typewriter is and just go straight. But since this all loops around, and since I want to kill every enemy over here, because we will have to backtrack over to this location to get the hourglass. The only thing I'm not certain of is if you have to kill the Garador and get out of that cage, the room with the cage, for the scripting to trigger with the hourglass. I think you do. I mean, it just would make sense that it would, and I'm about 95% sure, because what happens over here, if you can't see, is over to the left right now, there is an area where, as Leon, we used Ashley to boost us up, and we got a free magnum in that room. When we come back after the Garador fight, the guy with the slashing talons, there will be an enemy in there guarding like 4 treasures, one of which is an item you need to proceed with the level. And it's an interesting idea, because what they're doing is they're reusing a room, but they're adding some extra features to make the puzzle more dynamic. So I'll tell you what's going on when we actually engage with the puzzle. But these are actually pretty problematic here. I would make sure they're fully detached from the host before you start shooting them, because it doesn't seem like the enemy is fully buffered into the environment. So it's just one of those things. The combat in this game is so great and impeccable and wonderful that I don't mind going out of my way to fight extra enemies. Like, the draw of this game is the combat for me. So, like, when I sit down and play this, the combat is just where it's at, and I really like that, and I appreciate that, and I always lift games above others that have better combat. And that's also one of the reasons why I feel insulted when games that have combat in it that's lacking, that I take it personally. One other thing I wanted to note over here, there is a door that has, it'll say green letters. It says open in green letters. But it's one of those doors that it's sealed, because if you were to go any further, it's just out of the scope of the game's design for this chapter. So even though you interact with it, you don't get a temporary checkpoint. You have to actually go through a door with green letters. So sometimes it looks as though this enemy is a bullet sponge, but what I think it is, more to the point, is my bullets are just not even hitting it. They're going right through it, because part of the enemy is in the floor, like in the geometry of my bullets, the spread. It's just not affecting the enemy. But sometimes in this game, you're just so desperate to dispatch enemies, lest they grab you or hit you, that you resign yourself to using more bullets. Okay, so this is a neutral area. It has a merchant. It has a bunch of items. And I think this is where we ended up after the drill section on Leon's campaign. So if you haven't purchased the bowgun, you'll definitely want to do that, because it will make the fight coming up easier. If you don't have any grenades, since you can't buy any, the bowgun is going to save you your life, because you don't want to stay in the cage with the guard and the attendees, because it's too crazy. You'll get hit very, very easily. Interesting to know also that you can't buy a rocket launcher from the merchant as her. So I'm not sure what my rationale was for going back through the door. I think it was just to secure a checkpoint, but I'm going over here to show you the full circled nature of this course. In the room I just left was the room with the typewriter and the all those pickups with the perfume bottle. So I didn't save my progress, but I did create an artificial checkpoint for myself in that green letter door. So I just wanted to show you the full route, because we will be going back that extra way to get the hourglass. And it's very serious, the number of enemies that turn into the Las Plaga parasites. Let's see here. Yeah, not much to talk about. The room coming up is... Do you hear that shit? Constantly. Like, people have to... Oh, yeah. Have to drive constantly. Gotta drive. Gotta fucking drive, man. Drive, drive, drive. Fucking freaks. I mean, I have to drive too, but people, they just drive so much. Anyway, so what I was saying before that stupid ass truck driver derailed me was that it's a copy and paste fight coming up, with the exception of there are fewer attendees over here. Now, this guy in the red robe I ran past, but now I'll take him out. What I also wanted to say was that My reason for doing this is to go to this door over here, which is a green letter door, to secure a checkpoint that has the least run back to the encounter should you die. So there are 2 doors in this particular zone. This one just happens to be closest and has the least amount of run back. So equip your bow gun over here. Shoot the lock on the door. That hopefully will kill some of the lackeys, and then just get the hell out of the cage. And what you then want to do is shoot anybody in your way on this side of the cage, and then put your just hightail it to the other side of the room, because what that's going to do is force the Garador to reverse in his tracks. I imagine that he could come down this way, but you'd have to give him a lot of leeway. So his AI will respond to where you're going. So if you go towards this section, he'll go back into the cage if he happens to get out like he did get out for me. And provided you can do some evading over here and killing of these simple enemies, I would say that the fight is basically yours. That flash grenade came from the hutch right there. And using things like the flame grenades will do distributive damage to these guys, so you don't have to hit the parasite on their back. But hitting that with something like the semi-automatic rifle will do the most damage. So this is an enemy that typically needs to be lured away from you via sound. That is to say, using the bells, for example. But you don't get bells. You get thrown into a cage, and good luck getting out. But if you have a grenade, you can open the cage with that too. I showed that on my main campaign guide. Just one of the other issues is trying to aim, and the bars getting in the way of your vision. So just remember that you can shoot through the bars if you want to. Sometimes you kind of have to. You see, just like that. Fortunately, it's pretty forgiving. And see what they've done here is they've taken this room here, and they have kind of accentuated like what's going on, because before I think you would just grab a key out of the jar or the chest, whatever the fuck it is. But now they have you backtracking to another location that has it has relevance, and that's interesting. Because they could have just, I don't know, had the enemy have the key on him or something like that. So also just watch out for any droppers after you've killed the boss, because you'll have to kill everybody before you get a checkpoint. Actually, I don't think you get a checkpoint just for beating them, but you'll have to go to another door. So just make sure you're careful afterwards. See, in the context of the story, Leon's already been through here. That's why the chest in the center of the cage is open. So adding a layer to the story, having us go back somewhere relevant, like I said, it's an economical way of doing things, but it's also slightly innovative, and that's a good, I think that's a good balance, especially for what is essentially DLC. But I have no idea when this was made, because when this was made, I was not gaming. I was deep in studies at school, and I had no interest in video games, although I've been playing games for about 20 years now. So when you come back here, there are going to be no enemies, but I imagine if you don't kill them, they will be here to greet you. You could probably snipe the guy from outside here if you wanted to, but it is not necessary. I've done this about 4 times just to check to see how vulnerable you are at any given time. He grabbed me one time when I was vulnerable, but other than that, I've been able to get 75% of the time just land and shoot. The shotgun would be the best bet for that. And you're going to get several items here. And also that hourglass. And then we'll have one more interesting encounter. I have a very good tactic to get you through it. I guess you'd call it an advanced tactic. And then we're going to get free of dodge. Get the fuck out of here, man. And proceed to level 4. So I think I'm going this way because of the briefer space in between where I am and where I need to go. But a lot of the time in this game, it's just difficult to navigate the map because of the way the characters. It's like driving a car. It really is. Trying to navigate these characters. It's like driving a car in like an old Grand Theft Auto game. Not that I've ever played them. I don't want to play them. I'm just saying. I imagine it's similar to that. So put this in here. It's going to open the door for you, and then we'll be in another similar location. It's going to be a checkpoint room. So the best thing to do here, you'll hear a lot of obnoxious gunfire. I'm going to turn around and face the wall, and then I'm going to turn around again. Watch, see, these enemies, it's interesting because the enemies, the two that were closest to the door, it's lovely the way the iframes extend on this game. But just as I suspected, if you're looking in a particular direction, the enemies don't spawn because it just, I don't know why that happens in games. I think it's because it would look too bizarre if they spawn like out of thin air. They have to be, your back has to be turned before enemies spawn in this game. So the whole reason I did that was partly to test it, to see if they would materialize out of thin air. Also because if you lure everybody close to you, then you can use the iframes from the ladder to sprint to the other side, get all the enemies grouped together. This is the final treasure of the level, so you want to pick that up. It's pretty valuable. And Leon is supposed to be fighting on the other side, so they don't let you go over there because there would be some kind of a it suggests that there would be a paradox if Leon saw you, or something along those lines, like she would have to kill him or something. I know that's not a paradox, but I got that kind of inference. So you cannot go to the left. There's an invisible wall. So what I would recommend as you make your final ascent over here, even though we're not going up, but for some reason I was thinking of God of War Ascension, and I was just wondering if that perhaps marked a decline of the series, because I don't think that the third one did. But just a random thought as we conclude this chapter and march our way into chapter 4. Take care.